Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Realtors about real stuff.
And real things.
And real things and unreal things.
And and real estate.
In general. So today we are going to talk about how to buy a house. What are the best tips that we can give you in getting the best deal and what to expect, really.
Yeah. Buying a house 101.
Yeah. The basics.
The basics. So what's the first thing you should do?
I think the first thing you should do is there's two things you should do. You should find a realtor, just one realtor that you're going to work with and stick with that you know is going to be out there looking for you. And then have that realtor recommend the lender they like to work with. And so the reason for that is because when you write an offer, the listing agent is you're better off if the listing agent is familiar with the lender that you're choosing. So like a local lender. Bigger banks are actually not as accepted or as, we just don't get excited about them as listing agents because they are so difficult to work with.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
Yeah. So first thing would be get a realtor and then have that realtor recommend the lender that they like working with, and maybe one or two lenders just so you can shop the rates a little bit.
Yeah. And the reason why, or one of the reasons why you want to have your own realtor is because if you continuously just call the listing agents, you're not going to have one realtor that's working for you and one that like you'll get a higher level of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, not only service, but
service.
And yeah, service. That's the word. Service, but I mean also they're really watching for exactly what you want. Yeah. If you're jumping around from agent to agent, especially if you tell that agent, I'm just calling the agents on the sign, I'm only going to work with the listing agent, you're not going to have anybody trying to find you the house that you're looking for. And you're not going to get a better deal if you work with the listing agent.
That's what I was going to say is I think that is a misconception.
Yes, that if the listing agent represents me, I'm going to get a better deal. No, the listing agent has already set the price of the real estate fee with the seller. That is a contract between the seller and the listing agent. So typically you're not going to get a better deal necessarily.
Nope.
Not to say that it's not okay to work with, if you find an agent from a sign, that's okay as long as you like them and you want them to be your agent, whether you buy that house or another house.
Yeah.
It's okay to find it that way.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. And it's also okay as a buyer to interview different agents or talk to a few agents and see who you like and who you connect with. I think sellers usually know to interview a few agents, but buyers don't really think about that all the time.
Right.
So if you're a first-time home buyer, like look up different agents, talk to a few and see who you want.
Yeah, maybe even go to a couple open houses.
Yeah.
See who you kind of mesh with at the open house.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Make sure they know their stuff.
For sure. So how much, I think a lot of people don't know how little you need to actually have down to get into a house. Like if you are a first time home buyer, you don't need to have $50,000 to $100,000 necessarily, especially in the shifting market. Now may be your chance. So some of the options are like 3%.
Yep. So you can put as little as 3% down when using conventional loan. And a lot of buyers do 5% down is what I see, I think the most often. And there's certain cases, like if the home's been on the market a while or the sellers are really motivated, they'll cover your closing costs. So what I typically say to people is you probably want to save around 6% because 3% would be for down payment and around 2 to 3% for closing costs. If you don't spend the full 3% for closing costs and you'll have extra money, great. But in this market, it is more common to be able to get your closing costs covered. Whereas the last 2 years, there was no way.
Yeah. Yeah. Even asking, it was such a bummer for a lot of buyers, but that pendulum is swinging the other way.
Yeah. So you can easily get into a home for 3%. And then I would, of course, recommend having a little bit more than that in your savings account because you do want to have that cushion for after you move in. You'll probably want to do floors and paint and you'll need some more furniture and things like that.
Well, some people may have to do that or want to do that for sure. So let's talk about when you do find the house and you get into escrow, like what a lot of people don't even know what escrow is. So that's the time frame that you are in escrow. It's usually a 30-day time frame. And that's when you're having your appraisal done and you're giving your firstborn and blood to your lender to make sure that you can get the loan, and doing inspections. You have 17-day inspection contingency, and you have 17-day loan and appraisal contingency. So you're getting stuff done throughout the escrow, and that's what an escrow typically is. And what are some of the things what else could we cover about escrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a first-time home buyer, maybe you don't know what that timeline looks like at all. So typically I would say a first-time home buyer is going to look at anywhere from 5 to 10 homes before making an offer on something. So know that that's okay, and your agent is there to show you homes. And when you do find something to write on, the agent's going to do either like a Zoom call or an in-person meeting with you to go over the offer, because the offer is lengthy. It's more than just what am I offering and how long is the escrow going to be. It's contingencies and just little nuances that your agent's going to want to explain to you.
So you're rewinding and getting before the escrow part, which was probably a better way to go about this. But it is a 16-page contract.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's another, I don't know how many addendums that go along to that. So there is a lot of paperwork. Yeah. You're going to want to make sure that you're talking to an agent that's going to explain that to you. Yep. We all DocuSign, which is great and it's easy, but you want to know what you're signing. Yep. So make sure that your agent's gone over it, and you should probably read the contract.
Yes, read the contract. And then, of course, if you have questions, make sure you understand all your questions before signing. Yeah. And in this market, we're not seeing as many multiple offers anymore. The last 2 years, we were seeing a lot more. So the way that we're structuring offers these days is different. And then, so once you sign the contract, your agent submits it to the listing agent. The listing agent goes over it with their sellers, and they can either counter it or accept it. If there's more than one offer on the table, then they could do a multiple counter where they counter every buyer involved. And hopefully you get the house. And then at that point, that's when we open escrow. So when the seller agrees to your offer or counter offer, and we open escrow with the title company. And that's day one. And that's when contingencies start. So then we have typically 17 days to begin all of our inspections. The lender schedules the appraisal right away. And then the lender's asking you for all the different items that you'll need. The joke is like your third grade report card. You just never know what the underwriters are going to need.
Right. You never know. But it's definitely worth it. I was just talking to a client's daughter today, and she is looking for a rental, and she goes, I went online and I calculated what my payment would be if I bought, and it's basically the same as with renting. She's like, I could buy a house for 20 and my payment would be $2,200, and I'm looking at a house that's like $2,200 in rent. So she's going to talk to a lender and potentially get pre-approved. I mean, obviously real estate is a great investment. It always has been. And if you're going to pay rent, you might as well pay rent on your own house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. Or interest or whatever you want to say. I mean, and at the end of the day, rents are rising faster than anything. I mean, rents are just rising at an astronomical rate. So that's something to consider too, is when you buy a home today, you lock in that mortgage payment. That's all you're going to pay unless you choose to do something different. When you rent, you are definitely going to see that increase every year.
You know what else she said to me? She said, but what if the price goes down? The prices are going to go down. So what if I buy now and prices go down? And I just said, well, how long do you plan on being there?
Yep.
She goes, well, I don't really know. And I said, well, if you plan on being there, 3 to 5 years, preferably 5 years, you should be fine. Your value should be higher in 5 years so that you have gained some equity. But if you're not sure and you're thinking you might leave town in a year or two, then probably not the best thing to do.
Yep, exactly.
But then I did say, what's the worst thing that could happen? I said, if you decide to leave California, then you could rent it if the value's gone down. So there's options. Because she's just not sure what to do. She doesn't want to pay somebody else's mortgage, but she also is just concerned about what's going to happen in the next few years.
Yeah, and we've been having that conversation with a lot of buyers right now. And that's exactly what, the answer is let's dig a little deeper. Let's see, why do you want to buy? How long are you going to be there? Is this like a smart financial decision for you right now? And at the end of the day, real estate is an asset, and traditionally goes up. And in 3 years, you will most likely break even, if not make some money. So I think if you are to your point, gonna stay in a home for 3 years or more, it's probably a good idea.
Right. And then you have the tax benefits as well. So we highly recommend it as long as you're not planning on taking off in the next year or two. You got to stay in it a little bit right now.
Yeah. And on that note of like homes appreciating, I guess, we are expected to see home appreciation even with the rising rates year over year. So if you look at the peak was in May. If you look at that compared to right now, you're going to see a decline in the average home price. But if you look at this time last year, it's around the same.
Right.
So that's what we're going to continue to expect is either a slight appreciation of like 2 to 4%. There is one housing economist, Ivy Zellman, predicting a 4% drop, but 4% is not meaningful enough to stop, hopefully, to stop somebody from buying a house.
Right. And is that a 4% drop from where?
From where? Exactly.
Yeah. Was that from May? In our case, it was May. In other areas, it was the spring of 2022. Or is that from last year? I mean, so that's the hard part. And you know what? Even people like Ivy Zellman don't actually know.
And they're the pessimist of the like 7 main groups. Yes. Same in 08. They were very pessimistic about that.
Yeah. Good to listen to the pessimist, though.
It is.
Like, that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? What's the most likely scenario? Most likely scenario is that you're going to be paying rent to live somewhere, so you might as well invest it in something that is going to benefit you in the long run. So
yep, as long as you can afford the monthly payment.
Yep, as long as you can afford it, and as long as you're not planning on leaving
or losing your job.
Or losing your job. Well, do you have anything else to say about home buying?
Well, I was just kind of gonna wrap up. I'm totally mixing my words. I was just gonna kind of wrap up with a very brief overview of the rest of the escrow. So we do inspections. You get your appraisal back. You have all of the documents in that the underwriter is requiring of you. We receive final loan appraisal around day 17, and we negotiate repairs, which also isn't a newer thing. I mean, I think in Chico, we always had a little bit of give with that, even in the last 2 years of we could still get some repairs done unless that was negotiated ahead of time. But right now you can definitely get credits or repairs done during escrow by the seller. So we negotiate that. We make sure the appraisal comes in at or above value, and then we can wrap up. And basically by day, 18 or 19, the hard stuff's over, and it's now the title company's job to do these. It's called a settlement statement, where it's like the list of all the expenses and money that the buyer needs to bring in, and everybody signs, and then we close.
Smooth as pie.
Yeah, smooth as pie.
Most of the time. There are times. That's a whole nother episode, but we'll talk about some funny escrow stories one of these days.
Yeah, definitely.
We all have them, but yeah, no, it's a fairly
robust process.
It is. That's a good way. It's not an easy process. It is a robust process, but that's what your agent is there to help you through. Your lender, your agent, and the title and escrow company.
Yep. So if you guys have any questions about home buying process or want to do like a one-on-one buyer consultation, please reach out. We're happy to do it with you. There's nothing I love more than sitting down with a buyer and talking about the market and what to expect and how to get started in that process. And just, even if you're not ready yet, it's good to get educated on it.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of clients that are first-time home buyers that you've worked with over the years. And sometimes maybe you met with them a couple of years ago and they're just now buying, right?
Totally.
So, yeah, it's just good to dip your toe in the water, see what it's all about, and then decide whether it's for you now or later.
Yep.
All right. Good job.
Good job. Cheers. Peace out, as Brandi would say.